Welcome to the Professor of Perseverance. I'm Dr. James Perdue, the Professor of Perseverance himself. Hey, the Professor of Perseverance podcast. There we go, podcast. Don't forget that podcast thrown in there. So, hey, we interview people, we talk to people, we, just sit down, drink a cup of Joe or whatnot, and then just talk about how we can help other people overcome some type of struggle they're going through. And today our topic is on divorces. I've never been through a divorce, never been through a marriage. So this is going to be new for me and educational as well. And so the topic is divorce, mainly not to exclude you ladies, but it's to help out the men, dads. So this guy here, he is on a mission to assist dads create a healthier and less dramatic divorce for themselves and their children. Guest today, Jude Sandoval, aka the Divorce Advocate. Jude, thank you for
Wow.
coming in, buddy.
Wow, James, thank you. Fantastic introduction. I appreciate it very much, and I'm sincerely honored to be here today.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie to you. You sent the information, I just read it.
Well,
I didn't brainstorm it. I just throw a little enthusiasm in certain areas, but
hey, now
you did the good part.
Don't give all of our secrets away right away now. Come on.
there we go. Well, thank you for being here. And again, I've never been through a divorce. Well, I mentioned earlier, I did go through a divorce once. It's with you. I talked to you off with the divorce once. My mom and I called him the sperm donor because I never met my real dad. They divorced before my first birthday. So I was way too young to think about it, even remember any of it. And so, and he was never part of my life. He never sent a birthday card, Christmas card. He was never involved. And he actually passed away at the age of 35 when I was 12 years old, maybe, I think, something like that. And my mom had found out he was passing away, and she sent word to him that if he wanted to see his two sons before he passed away, she would bring us to the hospital to see him and for us to meet him. And he never sent word to be with us. So she remarried when I was 6 years old, and that was the dad that I knew growing up. Again, I told you before we got started, he loved me when I needed it, and he busted my butt when I needed it. So, and then he passed away when I was 16. We had him for 10 years. So, but that was my dad.
All right. So you have experienced divorce, because divorce is not just a vacuum that is experienced by the two people that are divorcing, which is a large part of why I got involved in this, is that I have 3 children, 3 daughters, and the impact on those around you is equally as significant, and you might even argue more significant on them than it is on the 2 participants in the divorce. So I think that's fantastic to be able to maybe hear a little bit about your experience also from the kids' perspective, right? Because that's a huge part of it, and something that we talk about a great deal in our forums, in our men's groups, and also on my podcast as well.
Well, and up to him 6 years old when my mom remarried, and he was a divorce as well. But when remarried, when I was up to 6, up to that point, my brother and I, we thought all families was just mama raised us,
right?
But because she didn't have men coming in the house and dating and everything. She dated this one here for a while, a year maybe, and they got married, and so we didn't know men actually come and stayed in the house forever.
Yes, yeah, and that's unfortunately more and more common these days. I am also I don't want to say, you hear product of divorce, but I've experienced divorce from the children's perspective as well. My parents were divorced too. And so part of what we do in coaching dads and helping dads through this and being dadvocates, like it's a funny name, but really it's assisting them in understanding and learning what that dynamic is, because oftentimes what you just described continues on generation after generation, right? So my parents got divorced, and I was just not ever going to get a divorce, right? So I was going to be married. I was going to get married. was going to take those vows. I was going to make sure that no matter what, love will prevail, and I will, no matter what, love so much and do whatever I can in order to make that happen. But as I had come to find out the slow and hard way after, is that I was basically perpetuating a similar dynamic or almost identical dynamic that I had experienced through childhood, like you described. Like, oh, I didn't recognize that man was supposed to come and stay. And so for me, I just perpetuated that same dynamic. And part of what we do in the work that we do is identifying what are those adaptive behaviors. So, right, we've created this personality, and we've created these personality traits and these behaviors that we've learned to do in childhood that have helped us get through our childhood, whatever those might be. It could be overgiving, it could be undergiving, or just a couple of examples. And then we take those into our relationships, except we found out in our adult life that those don't necessarily serve us the same way as they served us in our childhood, and then they could be described as maladaptive behaviors because it's not positively benefiting the relationship. And so then when you start to go through a divorce, it becomes really a huge opportunity. And I know some people out there listening go, oh, and some of the men, and I would have been the same as a lot of them during the divorce, say, what are you talking about, an opportunity? Are you seriously out of your mind? This is the most hellish thing that I'm going through. Why is this an opportunity? But if you can take the time to really, start through a process in this chaotic time frame to understand kind of what your contribution was to why this didn't work out, then it can become a really awesome opportunity going forward. Now, it's not an easy opportunity, and any good opportunities aren't necessarily easy, but it's a great opportunity to stop and really look at that and then make those changes.
I would think that, again, like I said, my real biological dad was never involved. And I've heard war stories from children, when I went to school, that mom and dad just argued all the time, even still divorced, and they're point blank in the middle of everything, it seems like. And so I'm kind of glad he wasn't involved, so I didn't witness that part.
Right.
But a lot of argument comes from people trying to one up, trying to be better, trying to whatever, throwing everything back in their face. And I would think that I would wish that the parents would grow up just long enough to get the kids at 18 years old and let them, and then if y'all want to throw down in war and whatever, the way the kids are not witnessing all of this. And I would think part of it again is, and of course you're an advocate for dads, I would think part of it is the dad is used to being the provider, being the healer, the helper, the doing everything, and now he only gets to do it once a week if he's lucky on the weekends, and gets frustration from that as well.
Right. So first, I just want to say there's no better or worse experience in divorce, whether that's, that your dad wasn't involved and maybe that was a blessing, but we all have some lessons that we're needing to learn throughout this process. And for me, that was a really freeing reframe, let's say, of the situation for me, because I had a ton of guilt around a failed, quote unquote, failed marriage. And when I was able to, long after now, it's been about almost 9 years that I've been divorced, but to see some of the benefits for my daughters and them learning how to deal with things based upon the relationship that they have now with my ex, with me, the dynamic that we have, and what they've been able to learn through it. I'm far enough down the road now to be able to see that there are some things that they would have never, ever learned, that I could not have ever provided an environment or an opportunity for them to learn had they not experienced going through that. So for any of the men, even women listening out there, understand that that's okay that you're going through this, and it's okay. Your children are going to be okay. Children are resilient. Look, you're here, I'm here. We both went through it. We're looking to give back and help, provide some perspective, and understand that persevering through this stuff can be a positive thing for them. So I just wanted to clarify that. Just, there's no right, there's no wrong, there's no better, there's no worse. It's all experience and all feedback. And if you can reframe your mind around that, it's a really good way to try to move forward. And then on your second point about the, going through this and then being a part-time father, if you will, that's a little bit of a challenge. And now I focus specifically on dads, divorced dads. And I did so because of the fact that I found that there's not a lot of resources out there in general for men divorcing, but very specifically for dads, because the dads have a completely different dynamic, right? If you don't have kids, you get divorced, you kind of go back to that single life. Dads have a whole different ballgame going on. Whether you have one kid or 5 or 10 kids, it's a completely different challenge. You're alone now. You're parenting by yourself now. You described how a lot of men, and I would say the majority of men, are providers, and they've fallen into or decided consciously to be in that traditional family structure. And now this becomes a non-traditional family structure, right? You're a single dad, and oh my God, that is like the biggest, scariest, most chaotic thing, particularly when you first get that, maybe get served those papers, right? Because as men, we have these general masculine tendencies that like order and have a direction and want to know what's the next step, etc. And then all of a sudden we're in divorce and everything is chaotic, turned upside down and uncertain. And that is not a comfortable place. So that's why it's my goal to be able to help sort through that, because by doing so, we create, a healthier divorce, right? For the dads, which in turn will create a less traumatic experience with the children, because that's really, if you get your perspective right, you're focusing on how you can get through that in order to minimize the damage that you can do to the children.
You mentioned earlier, and I would think that for most men, this is married and I'm married, we do a lot better, like you said, when we have organization, we know what to expect. We got a blueprint and we just follow that. We're in good shape. It's when we have to deviate, then the old thing, we don't need no map to get us where we're going, or ask us where to go. We'll figure it out from there. Right. Yeah. So, but if we could have that blueprint, it's much easier on us from there.
Right. Yep. Exactly. It's a challenge, but that's part of what, as a divorced advocate and the community that I've built and that we continue to build, is providing some of that support. Firstly, because number one, we get really isolated and siloed in our families oftentimes, and then once you're split from your families, then what do you do? You've kind of had this lifestyle for such a long time. You're used to being dad. You've kind of got this routine. You're going to work and you're playing with, doing stuff with the kids and whatever else it may be. And then all of a sudden it's just totally different. And not to mention, you're going through all this mental and emotional issues because the person you had planned on spending your life with is now no longer there, or maybe it's even so bad that you can't even talk to each other, or you're arguing, or whatever it may be. And it's just a complete degradation of like the whole relationship, which is, sad in itself. And that's another thing that we talk about. And this was a big one for me as well, is grieving the loss of that. Like anytime you lose a relationship, when somebody passes away, it's kind of the same thing when you lose a relationship. When you lose your marriage, there's a process that you need to go through, and we don't know a lot of this stuff as men, and we've never been taught it. If we're like my family was, I never had a dad that was intimately involved in talking to me about feelings, or how are you feeling about this, or what should you do next? What's your path forward? Or do you need to be disciplined about something? Or do you need to...
we fall down as kids and dad say, "I'll put some dirt on it." And we're taught to be strong and not show emotions. And now here you are completely confused. Again, like you said, the feeling of a failure, and you're beating yourself emotionally and mentally from this. And so now you're having to learn to reestablish a new identity, divorced dad.
Yeah, exactly. And I tell you, kids are one of the best things for helping you to identify what those feelings are, because whether they're boys or girls. So I've had the good fortune of having 3 girls. So I've really been forced into it, right? It's and now they're teens. And so now that it's like feelings all day, all the time, it's like, what are you feeling?
There you go.
That's good. That could be all across the board on any given day in my household. But it's been a really positive experience in the sense that, you see them and they are so open, right? They're totally open, and we only close off to those feelings because of those adaptive behaviors we talked about in the beginning, and what you just described, which was throw some dirt on it, be stoic. Maybe, that was the message I always got from my father, brush it off, don't cry, and just get on with it. And man, I'll tell you what, that just does not bode well then when you get older and you get in relationships and you really need to be able to share those things with somebody else, particularly if you're trying to share a life and you're trying to raise kids and you're trying to do it in a healthy environment, because then it just all stays inside of you. And then it's going to come out somewhere, right? It's got to. It's just like a pressure cooker. At some point, the pressure gets so big, it's going to explode. And oftentimes what happens is that pressure cooker where the cracks start happening, where the explosion happens, is in the relationship. And then it all goes to heck.
Well, I was going to say, we bottle up our emotions because that's what we were brought up. Don't show your emotions. Don't get out there. Don't whine and cry. And then so instead of opening up to someone, a group, an organization, a divorce advocate, and instead of doing stuff like that, then we want to bottle it up. And then when we finally do explode, it's on a new spouse or wife.
Yeah.
And then they're the ones listening through what you've been through. And whether they've been through a divorce or not, they may or may not understand what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And if you haven't done the work and really identified what your part of it was and how you can change that, then you're just going to perpetuate the same thing. And I did that. So I did everything wrong after, right? Got into another relationship, trying to fill the void from before. Same things happened until so I'm a little dull, a little dense. So I got to get beat on the head a couple of times before I actually wake up and go, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I got to stop doing the same thing. But I also wanted to make 2 points to what you just said also, which is find a community if you're going through this, men or women, but find a community, find somebody to talk to. And if you've got the means, therapy is fantastic. Therapy and coaching together is great. But even if it is just it could be a step group, it could be a church group, it could be even if you just have a friend that you can have a beer and talk with. That's all I had. And that was frankly what got me through the stress of it. Now, on that note, friends don't necessarily always have the best advice, right?
That's right.
Professionals, they care about you, but sometimes their advice is not great. So just take that with a grain of salt. And the other point I wanted to make about the feelings is you would be amazed. And I think it's a wonderful thing, but we do some group meetings, and actually they're free group meetings, and I'll give you the link for the show notes, and you can put those out for anybody that wants to join. We have free group meetings, and you'll be amazed. After one man says, I was just in bed, curled up, crying myself to sleep last night, the collective sigh of relief of all the other men going, oh my God, him too?
Yeah.
It's,
It wasn't just
wow,
me.
I thought it was, yeah, all right. I thought it was just me. I thought I was the only one having these feelings or going through this, or like I felt weak or whatever. So it's an awesome, again, opportunity to be able to get back in touch with your feelings and then go forward and learn how to, to deal with those. And then that can be a learning experience for your kids, because whether we like it or not, this was another aha for me. They're learning more from what I'm modeling and what you're modeling than anything I could possibly say at all. And so you start modeling that, being open with your feelings, being able to share that, being able to communicate effectively, and then it just becomes a really cool spiral. And then you break that, tradition that might, I don't want to call it a tradition, but that's that chain that continues to go through the generations that is unhealthy.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to tell you, you talking about, crying yourself, emotion, everything. I used to be a school teacher, and I used to aggravate the kids sometimes. And I was a seventh grade teacher, and I would go like this. We would talk about life expectancies and stuff. And I said, well, the women, you live on average 8 years longer than most men. I said, because you cry all the time, drop of a hat, you're crying. You're releasing this emotions, you're getting it out. I said, where men, they bottle it up, and then next thing you know, they're having a heart attack and a stroke because they're not releasing all this energy that they're bottled up. And then I would tell them, say, that's why once a week, I'll take a hammer and hit my thumb to make myself cry. And they just look at me like, what? Huh? So yeah, but we've got to be able to release these emotions. And you mentioned about other organizations, going to a pastor, preacher, church, coaching. The great thing about it, at the end of our fingertips on these computers nowadays, we can find all this information just on the tip of our fingertips if we want to find this help.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And then there's also people like you doing these great podcasts and these work in making it more acceptable. It's not that it has or hasn't been acceptable, but it's just becoming more acceptable and something that people are talking about more and normalizing. And it's important that we do it, important that we know that it's okay. Now, men do it differently, and that's okay too. And that's the other part of what I'm trying to do here, and part of why my coaching business is specifically geared towards men and their masculine nature as dads, is that we process it differently. And a lot of the therapy that is out there right now. So I will say, if there's one thing to not be so much caution, but to discuss with a new therapist that you might be interviewing or a new coach that you might be interviewing, is talk about that, your masculine nature. And that's something that we've kind of been, these days, and I'm just going to say it as these days, like repressing this masculine nature, that it's bad, and it's not. Your masculine nature, your masculine tendencies, or masculine energy, as I describe it, is good. It is a force for good. And so if somebody doesn't understand that it is and can be a force for good, now, just like anything that is really can be a positive, there's also a flip side where it can be very negative and can be very bad, but expressed in a healthy manner, it can be very good. So I would absolutely recommend having that conversation with anybody professionally that you do get into or that you do get into contact with or are wanting to hire, that they do feel comfortable with that and talking about that and working from that perspective. Because a lot of it, while there's a proliferation of therapists, has become more common, there's a whole lot of it, and I would say the majority of it, that is feminine focused, which isn't bad, because it's necessary and it's great and is doing a lot of good. But we need also to have some that are focused on the masculine and how that works a little bit differently. So hopefully, we'll come back to an equilibrium here, in the future, as more of us talk about it, like you and I, and more people get involved in it and start making it something that's their focus, like I have. But for right now, it's something that you need to be aware of, because it can be very detrimental if you've got somebody that is working directly against what your masculine nature is, and how that manifests in your life and in your relationships and with your family. Whoops.
During
Sorry about that. My phone just went off in my earbuds.
There you go. Have you done any reading or research to find out how soon after a divorce a man might get into some type of group discussion, some type of counseling? And there may not be an average. I don't know if they wait a year, 2 years, 6 months. I know everybody's different. I don't know if there was maybe an average about how fast maybe they may seek help. Because I would think, here's the thing that I'm thinking of. I attempted suicide years ago, because I was brought up to be strong. Don't give out your weakness and things like that. And so I thought that going to counseling, seeking counseling, was a mental illness in itself. People thought you were crazy, and so that's what I was wondering. Oh, I think we lost Jude.
All right, sorry. I'm back. I apologize. My earbuds. All this technology makes you so convenient, and then when it screws up, it just throws a wrench in the middle of everything. So I apologize. I did not catch your question or commentary. If you don't mind repeating.
Technology is great when it's working. So
yeah, or when the user knows how to work it too.
there you go. We just get to the main question: is have you done any research or reading on how soon a male may go to counseling or a group setting to express what's going on after a divorce? Like, for instance, like I was saying a minute ago, I attempted suicide years ago because I grew up, don't express, you bottle it all up. And back then growing up, if someone saw a psychiatrist, they would thought they were crazy.
Right.
And where we need to break that stigma, because I'm a firm believer, after, of course, living through this, that we need to exercise our mind as much as we exercise our body. We try to stay physically in shape. We need to be mentally in shape as well. And if that's seeing a psychologist, psychiatrist, a preacher, a minister, a best friend, a group organization, talking with you, the divorced advocate, we need to be able to exercise our mind as well.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, James, of the exercise one with your body, because we hear all the time, okay, you got to do this much exercise, 30 minutes a day in order to keep your heart. We talk about that, but don't talk about that with our mind. And it is equally as important. Now, I don't have any statistics around as far as how soon you should, but I would say it's never too soon to start talking about it, because if you feel like you're unhappy in your marriage, or that there's trouble brewing in your marriage, or if you're to the point where you're filing for divorce, that there's something askew. And if there's something askew, it takes two people for that to happen. There's not just one person's behavior that is 100% the reason why something's happening. It's a dynamic, right? So the sooner you can talk to somebody, the better. Now, I have dads that come to me that aren't divorced yet, but are unhappy and are thinking about this and want to know and understand. And I welcome them with open arms, because you do not want to go through a divorce. This is not an experience that you want to take lightly. There's not a winner in divorce.
Oh, yes.
It is extraordinarily mentally and emotionally difficult. It is incredibly expensive, and it will continue to be expensive because you're separating households. So it becomes an added expense. So there's not a winner in divorce. Now, it is an opportunity, again, like I said, but if you're thinking about it, or if you know somebody that's thinking about it, or you know a dad that's thinking about it, have them connect with somebody in therapy, in coaching, whatever it may be, before doing this and before making this decision. Because if you can't avoid it, and oftentimes you can, sometimes it's just not possible, but oftentimes you can, then that is going to be a huge, huge win for you and for your spouse, for your children, for your family in doing the work. So it's the same opportunity that I'm talking about as, when you're going through a divorce and assessing what's going on and what your end of it is, and, going through the process, but it's just happening sooner and mitigating any of the damage that could potentially happen during divorce.
I would think that before you decide this is finally it, I would hope, like you said, more people would go find some type of counseling or something and find out if there's any way of, I mean, they're specialists for a reason. And they may give you 5 other different avenues to try that you never thought of first. And of course, with the spouse as well, like I said, it takes 2 to tango in this. And so where everybody's on the same page, where you're trying all you know. But again, somebody like the divorce advocate or counseling preacher, whoever, they can go, well, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? And then give you different options to go at least try and go through as many as you can before you make a final decision.
Yeah, absolutely. We all have our blind spots, right? And
yes,
so
we know what we know, and we don't know anything else.
And we don't know what we don't know, right? So
that's right.
And so that's a fantastic advice, and it's you'd be surprised, because divorce has become so normalized that people don't think about it. In a society where we have 500 choices of cereals when we go to the grocery store in the cereal aisle, or no commitment to our cell phone provider if we just want to switch tomorrow, there's not that mentality of, let me really stop and assess what's going on. Let me see what it is maybe that I'm doing. And that's always a good start, right? You can't control the other person. You can't drive both buses at the same time. You can only drive your bus. That's a good place to start. It doesn't always mean that your spouse or your significant other is going to come along, right? But you can start that process. And even if you start it before, you're way ahead of the game, right? So if you start it before, you do the work, you try to do it with your spouse, but it doesn't happen. And that was my experience. At least you know that you can take what you've learned and take that process and then start building upon it after. And you're going to be in a much healthier frame of mind, place in going forward through that, knowing more about yourself and how you can mitigate this process. So great point. Those are great points.
Give it the old college try. So,
yeah,
exactly. And like exactly. You said, you hop on the bus first and go do what you need to, and then again, better educate yourself, better make yourself more educated and aware. Your spouse, significant other may see the difference and want to know what's going on here, and then jump on board with you.
Yeah, they talk about. So we talked about modeling with kids, but it's the same things in relationships. If you want to be have a healthier family, one of the things that in my steps, so I go through some steps with dads when they're going through this, and one of those is optimizing your environment. So when you know that you want to get fit, right, maybe get healthier, you start to optimize your environment to be able to do that. You maybe get rid of the junk food around the house, maybe don't go down that cereal aisle when you go to the grocery store, and you start creating an environment that is conducive to what your goal is. And that's the same thing in your relationships. And that can happen anywhere, right? It doesn't have to be with your personal relationships or with your children. That can be at work, that could be at your church, that could be anywhere that you want to see, you have a goal that you want to see some sort of improvement, optimizing that environment, and then, taking hold of that steering wheel on your bus and going forward. And you'll be amazed You'd be amazed. I'm always amazed. Like, I'll be scared. Like, my podcast was one of them. I just put it off and put it off and put it off because I was worried about this and that. And then it's like, finally just, took the wheel and said, I'm going to do this. And it's just like flourished. And so part of that is starting with the behavior. There's this old philosophy that you have to think about and get the mindset around all of this before you do it, in changing your personality, or that your personality is permanent. It is not. And the behavior precedes the change in your personality. So for instance, you want to become a podcaster, right? I wanted to extend this reach of the divorced advocate. And so I wanted to become a podcaster. So I could read all about it. I could buy all the equipment to do it, get all the subscriptions to everything. It doesn't make me a podcaster. I had to actually go and do it, have some really horrible podcasts. If you listen to some of the beginning ones,
that's right.
they're not great. They don't sound good. My abilities to communicate and interview or talk about stuff was not great. They're not phenomenal now, but they're better than they were before. That's that behavior. So now, I'm a podcaster. Am I a great podcaster? No. Am I a better one than I was before? Yes. So it's continually changing. So that personality, and so you apply that to personality. It's the same thing, whether that's, you want to be more fit, or you want to be more honest, or you want to be able to communicate better. Again, it's the behavior, taking that step to change that behavior, and then the rest of it will follow.
And our guest, Jude Sandoval, the divorce advocate. And I want to thank you for being here. I mean, you've thrown out a lot of stuff here, and I mean, a lot of stuff that people, like I said, been through or going through a divorce, they're going to understand. Like I said, I've never necessarily been through it as much like this, but I'm with you 100%. People need to than to sit back in the caveman stay and go, all right, I'm going to just bawl over here and throw a rock out there at the window and, get some help. Try to save the marriage if possible. If not, there's still a great life out there that you and everybody can live. The family, the kids, even the ex can even support each other and help each other. So I appreciate
Absolutely.
you passing the message and helping out people.
It is my pleasure, James. And I'd like to offer something for free to your audience out there. And this is a guide. It's called Dad's Guide to Divorce. And so if you're contemplating or going through a divorce, even if you are divorced, it's just it's a brief 10-page guide on giving you some tips on how to go through that process. I told you I've got like a 5-step process that I work men through. It's my 5-step process. So if they go to Dad's Guide to Divorce.com, they can download that. It's a free PDF, and hopefully that'll give them some value.
That, and I'll put those in the show notes. And you also mentioned about a group.
Yes, so we
give a link to that as well.
Yep, I will give you the link to that. I don't have a fancy URL name for that, but I have the link that I'll give to you to put in those show notes. And we meet bi-monthly. It's 100% free, and we've got fellows from all across the country that tune into that, and we're just sharing and supporting each other during this difficult, challenging time.
There you go. Provide support to help out each other. So that's good. All right, Jude, I appreciate you coming on. And everyone else, hey, Jude, one last thing. Now, we know that people are struggling, especially someone during the divorce. If you can give a positive message that can help them get through today, that would be awesome.
So my positive message to anybody going through divorce, or specifically to the dads going through the divorce, is that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that this experience, as difficult and as challenging and as stressful as it may be, is leading you in a positive direction for your life and a positive direction for your children. We may not be able to see or understand what that is at the time, but having gone through it and been out, the backside of it, and now down the road even a little, I can look back and I can see all those. So just stay with it. Dads, you are important. You're an important part of your children's lives. So make sure to take care of yourselves and get through this and stay involved with your kids because they need you.
hang in there and go through it as much as possible. We don't know the score at the end of the game until it's over with, so jump in and get active with it and go as well. John
Amen.
Bentley, thank you for coming in, buddy. Thank you. Great information. Jude has been awesome here, the Divorce Advocate. So you can go to his website. I'm sure you got a website to Divorce Advocate.
thedivorcedadvocate.com.
There you go. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. Everyone else, thank you for sharing. Go ahead and share this. Anybody coming in for the replay, thank you again. Find somebody you know that can use some hope and go from there. Everybody else, do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your paralysis.